Lethal Company is the recent big hit game, and it's no wonder really. Despite being in early access, the game is really fun and leads to a lot of great moments, especially with the proximity voice chat. But looking beyond the clips you can get of your friends screaming wildly at jump scares, there's a bit of very interesting hidden background that one can find in the world. Despite not being a full release yet, there's already a lot of lore to be found. You can scan monsters to gain details about their biology and other information, and in some locations find hidden data packs detailing information from a scrapper named Sigurd, who worked for the company before, and who provides us a little bit more information about what the company might be up to. We can also extrapolate some information from certain items, locations, and objects in the game. So bring your shuttle down in front of the theatre doors, because today on the Panopticon Theatre, I want to look into the lore and see what we can find out about the mysterious company we work for. As a note, everything in this video is up to date as of version 47 of the game. In Lethal Company, you take on the role of a scrapper, a worker for the company who is shuttled down on an autopiloted ship to explore abandoned moons filled with strange creatures and saleable scrap, which you then bring back to a planet called Gordian, where you place the items you found on a shelf, ring a bell, and summon some sort of tentacle monster to collect it. Each cycle you have to meet a particular cost quota, and if you fail to meet that quota, you're jettisoned from the ship as punishment for failing the company. It sounds simple enough, but behind the face of the game, it's all actually pretty weird. There's two major things I want to examine in this video: the moons and the history of this world, and the mysterious company itself. The bulk of information we learn is from Sigurd, who as mentioned before was a prior scrapper at the company. We can access his logs by typing his name in the terminal, as stated on the sticky note found in the ship that reads, "You're in deep, access file Sigurd." There are several logs we can collect on each moon. Sigurd isn't a great speller, but he does tell us quite a lot about what's going on, or at least his perspective. He was in a crew with 3 other people: Richard, Desmond, and Jess. The first important thing to note is that Sigurd's logs date back to 1968. The terminal screen tells us the year it is now is apparently 2532, an incredibly long time later. That is a 564-year difference. The company has been running this operation a long time. And there's no way Sigurd himself left this note, it wouldn't have survived that long, meaning that either this information has been passed across various crews that have manned the ship before, or someone left it especially for us and our crew. Sigurd also describes the terminal as an old janky butt computer, suggesting it was already an old system back then. It's practically ancient by the time we get to it, and it can't have changed much. Sigurd's crewmate Desmond added the logs feature himself, and if it was significantly updated, it likely would have been removed and wiped. Sigurd quickly starts questioning the company's purpose, wondering what they're using the basically worthless scrap for. He calls them shady and talks a little about why he joined. High pay mostly, and later we find out he wanted a real job to impress his dad. This, plus his general casual tone of voice in both the logs and the bestiary, actually suggests Sigurd is not really that old at this time, which is pretty grim once you read everything. Anyway, he was hired by a mysterious voice on the phone that assessed him, which he thinks was fake. We're also only spoken to with a TTS voice through the speaker, so that tracks. He also says the contracts last a season, which if we go by the game's quickly ramping difficulty and quotas seems pretty impossible. Then he states that the crew all signed contracts together on the autopiloted shuttle without speaking to anyone. He also had to go to Gordian to sell scrap. His descriptions he gives of the area match up perfectly, and he identifies the large grey structure as the company building. He's scared of the sounds behind the sail hatch, and he finds his flashlight illuminates nothing at all behind it. Whilst there, one day he hears a horrifying sound behind the wall that nobody else hears. It sounded like crying red faces all churned up and swept away by concrete, like the pestle and bowl my mum crushes her seeds and spices in. I still hear it. It's a nightmare. No one else heard it. Now, I'm a little unsure about this part following, as although the information seems to follow on from this, the dates are out of order. But I'll give you the information here, as this is where they become relevant. Sigurd learns that you can hear these screams all the time if you use a walkie-talkie near the wall. He uses this to prove to the others what he heard. This is labelled as being in September, but one label in August with no specific day listed starts with, "I talked to a voice on the walkie-talkie, it was like a part of the screams." This sounds like it follows on from this revelation, so despite the dates I'm going to assume they follow this order. This is what this log says. "I talked to a voice on the walkie-talkie, it was like a part of the screams. He told me the golden planet actually existed, it's not a legend, and he told me that it didn't just hit a meteor. He said the planet was swallowed up by the beast, and they were in its body being digested. I asked what the beast is, and he said he didn't know. He said it ate the planet and they forgot everything. I couldn't get him to stop talking, but I said he was on the other side of a big wall and I could get him out. I said he was inside the building, and that's when he started freaking out. I couldn't make out a word. I think he said something about spitting out the rinds, so I just turned it off. What a whack. Jess says the golden planet is just a story. I said I know, I'm not an idiot." This is huge. A so-called golden planet was eaten by a beast, though legends seem to say it was hit by a meteor. Someone inside the wall is calling out, saying this. Remember, the company planet is called Gordian, golden, and there is certainly something behind those walls. We'll come back to this shortly. On September 7th, Richard is killed by something that we can identify as one of the monsters in the game, the Bracken. They have to leave his body behind even though Sigurd wants to collect it. He suggests they might have left him too if he hadn't got out. He continues to question the purpose of their work. He's the one to call the company to report the death, but just gets the same fake voice that essentially quickly brushes him off and says a replacement will be sent. Desmond, who's a bit of a tech whiz, is able to trace the call, and it doesn't come from the company building, but somewhere else, literally across the solar system. Why would they be so far away? Desmond said he doesn't know, but I think, what if there really is a big monster in the company building like the voice told me on the walkie-talkie? They trapped it and we feed it to keep it tame. Next, this whole log from September 30th. I keep having bad dreams about the company building where the company breaks out of that giant concrete wall, but I don't know if it looks like anything. I think it's just really big and fast. We can't figure out a way to know if the voices on the phone are real. Desmond says it's too far away. I asked him if he could take control of the autopilot and he said I'm crazy and that could kill us. Yes, I am crazy, Desmond. He said we'd have to get our own private flight to go to the coordinates and who knows what would actually be there, so what if it's nothing? I started wondering how I can't remember how we really got here. I just remember little things like the shuttle flight to the building where we signed our contracts, but I don't remember getting on the shuttle. I don't even remember saying bye to Dad. In my dreams it feels like the company isn't trapped in there at all, it's just hiding. I don't know if I'm going home. It's hard to tell if Sigurd's memory loss is due to something physically happening to him, or as a result of his breaking psyche. He's gone through some pretty horrible things, of course, but it is relevant. Following from that, on October 1st, he comments that he saw Richard standing on a hill on the moon Vow, and now the others don't want him to go out on that moon as he gets pale and scared. This could be a hallucination, or it could possibly be a masked, which is a mob that greatly resembles and acts like a player. It could also be some sort of ghost, as there is the Ghost Girl mob as well, so phantom-type beings aren't unprecedented. I'm personally of the belief, however, that it was a hallucination. Then, another important couple lines. I miss Dad. I hope he isn't staying on Titan. People are saying it's not going to look the same in 2 years. Jess told us they're about to go to war and everyone's just waiting for it. Every time we go to sell, the company building is shaking like a loud furnace inside. They're too afraid to quit. We can barely sleep to meet the quota and it gets worse every time. Well, first of all, Titan is one of the playable moons, so there goes that. But that confirms that as of around 500 something years ago, people were still living on Titan and possibly other moons we see in game. Keep the war part in mind, we'll come back to that. The final log is actually from Desmond on October 15th. He says this. I'm encrypting these logs to keep them hidden, as I fear the system will be wiped if they're found. It's all a guise. We're supposed to think it's all just a transaction, but our real job is keeping an incredible terror fed. How long until its fullness ends and its hunger is insatiable? God knows. Maybe it has to do with all those desolate moons. Whoever reads this, I'm sorry to burden you with this. Please have a good day and night, as what else is there for us to do? From there, we have no idea what happens to the crew. We can hope Sigurd lives despite Desmond finishing the logs, but it's pretty safe to say they probably didn't make it. It's likely that they, and Jess, and Richard's replacement Lucas all fell to similar fates on the abandoned moons, to be replaced with another fresh worker. It's been over 500 years since then, of course, so either way, they're definitely all dead. What definitely isn't dead is whatever is inside the company building. It sounds like some creature is trapped inside the concrete box, and it seems the purpose of the company's scrappers is not to sell the scrap, but to feed this beast and keep it docile, so it doesn't eat another planet, which it sounds like it's done in the past. I don't know how the people in there were still alive as they were being digested, but they were still in there calling out for help, or maybe they were just the ghosts of what was once the Golden Planet. Either way, if you go there now, there's no screams to be heard anymore, at least not in the game. It's possible the Golden Planet was actually, well, golden. There are real-life celestial objects made of gold and other precious metals, like the asteroid 16 Psyche. Gordian is also the name of the capital city of Phrygia, known for a certain King Midas and his golden touch. If you don't know that story, best go look it up. I don't think we have time in this video to get into it, but there you go, another association suggesting this planet was in some way made of gold. If this beast within the walls is stated with scrap metal and such, it seems to suggest that whatever it is eats metals. It'll drag humans in if you bother it by ringing the bell, but otherwise seems happy enough with scrap like metal sheets and cookie pans to a point. Actually, the most profitable item you can give it is the gold bar, which tracks. Maybe gold is its favourite. And maybe that's why Gordian is all water with no land now. The beast ate it all. But it's notable it's considered a legend. It must have either been eaten a very long time ago to Sigurd's time, or information about it has been suppressed. Either way, speaking of the legend, remember how it said a meteor hit it? Maybe that's where our beast came from. Sigurd does refer to the beast directly as the company, and the description of Gordian says, where the company resides, so it's possible this creature is itself the entire company, or that is his actual name. If there are any actual people working there, it seems from Desmond's trace that they're about as far away from Gordian as they can get, and no wonder if they're worried this thing might come out. There's also a few rare voice lines you can get when submitting scrap. One of them is,
"This wall cannot contain it."
Yeah, in my opinion, the beast is the company, and if it's not kept happy, it's coming out. To fully articulate my point here, I think the company, i.e. the beast, is hiring us directly itself to keep fed. How it has access to things like a shuttle and how it obtains the staff, I don't know, but we can just go with the "it's a terrible eldritch entity, it can do what it wants" explanation for now. Personally, my take is that it's currently finishing up digesting the planet, and the ever-increasing quota means that once again it's getting more and more hungry, and maybe getting ready to bust out of the wall. Maybe the scrap we give it is helping it build up strength to do so. If you go beneath Gordian, on the platforms down there, you can find a strange machine. It looks a little bit like a bore or drill, and it's pointed at the wall. It has 2 slots for apparatus, and 1 for a battery, but you can't put anything in at the moment. The side of the drill is spray painted with "Don't Tell", and there's a yellow circle sprayed on the wall in front of it. It's also been called a bomb or submarine by players, but looking into the game files revealed it's labelled as giant drill, so there you go. It's likely this is something that will be implemented later, or if not, just a hint that at least someone out there was trying to find out what's really behind that wall. Hopefully we'll get to find out more about it in the coming updates. All the moons you travel to are abandoned, seemingly long abandoned in many cases, but have clear signs that once people were here, people worked here. Titan, at least, we know was populated around 500 years ago. The facilities you explore are large and complex, and the scrap you bring back to sell ranges from machinery and equipment to regular items like cookie trays, whisks, and hairbrushes. There are currently 2 variations of facility that you can explore, one which is a factory, the other which is a mansion. We have a lot less information about the world than we do the company. There's stuff we can guess at and extrapolate, but not much concrete evidence for anything. Let's do our best to put some stuff together. Let's quickly look at the moon's information boxes. We know from the game that it takes place in the Thistle Nebula. The only named planet we know within it is the Big Grin, a gas giant. As for the moons themselves, Experimentation's info box says it was used in secret, though by who and for what we can't say, but the conditions being worsened by industrial artifacts suggests some significant level of industry here. Assurance is its twin. Bow's box suggests there is signs of colonies once there, but obviously no more. Offense is a splinter moon of Assurance. Its box contains some interesting info. It apparently has only been separate for a general several hundred years, and the industry artifacts here are from before it split, suggesting the industry on Assurance is, in age, somewhere over that several hundred years. There's not much to say on March, but Rend and Dine both share the interesting line: several famous travellers went missing here, giving it some reputation. Their bodies are unlikely to be found due to the planet's conditions. It's unclear if these are meant to be other scrappers or some other travellers. However, these are the 2 planets that are most likely to host the mansion interior layout, suggesting civilization lived here once, not just industry. Finally, Titan, which we know was mined for resources and also still had people on it around 500 years ago. None of this tells us a whole lot, unfortunately, although it does provide some overall context, so let's dig deeper and look at the creatures. One thing very interesting about the beings on these planets is that a lot of them are directly related to Earth fauna. For example, the spore lizards are from the order Alligatoridae, which includes alligator-adjacent creatures. The baboon hawks are from the family Cercopithecidae, which is a family of primates including the baboons they have in their names, and manticoels are from the family Corvidae, which makes them closely related to crows and similar birds. The manticoel's entry says in particular, their bodies are quite large compared to their early descendants, which to me suggests that they are direct descendants or evolutionary branches of these original Earth animals. A particular entry of interest is the bunker spider. It reads, "Bunker spiders of the genus Theraphosa are the largest arachnid found in the Thistle Nebula and the 2nd largest ever discovered. It's believed they evolved to prey on large mammals over the course of a measly several hundred years after the boat made its trip around the Thistle Nebula, referred to speculation on increased speciation around the fading nebulae. Bunker spiders can pose a great danger to humans and urban explorers especially, without a great benefit to their ecosystems. The resulting kill-on-sight order has been informally agreed upon between many states home to the bunker spider, and is currently approved by the ITDA as of 10/6/1965. There's a couple points here. Firstly, the quoted text speculation on increased speciation around the fading nebulae is not in the game, but is mentioned in a few entries mentioning this particular phenomenon of what is essentially very fast evolution over a several hundred-year span. It's also interesting that it states they evolved to prey on large mammals over a rather short timeline. It also tells us of the existence of states, which seem to be some sort of political entities that may control certain areas of space or other particular area designations. What the ITDA is, we don't have a clue. The boat, too, is an interesting mention. I'm inclined to liken it to a Noah's Ark type situation. It sounds like whatever this boat is, perhaps a spaceship of some kind, it dropped off some Earth animals on these moons. Some do not have these type of entries, and that is those that appear to be somewhat mechanical or maybe man-made in nature. That's the Nutcracker, who has a completely differently formatted entry, the Jester, which only has a rather wild get away from this thing entry from Sigurd, who says it has no scientific record, and the Coilhead, which is not connected to any known genus, but is interesting for reasons which we'll shortly come back to. The Ghost Girl and Mast have no entry associated. The entry for Coilhead says they have been speculated to be biological weapons of war. This isn't our first mention of a war. Remember, Sigurd said in 1968 that Jess was expecting a war to start soon on or involving Titan. It's possible this is what caused it and perhaps other surrounding moons to be abandoned. There's also very interestingly the turrets and landmines of the buildings. Clearly these buildings weren't abandoned suddenly, they were set up defensively to protect from outsiders. I've seen suggestion that they're there instead to keep the creatures inside, but mobs can't actually trigger either of these items, and certain ones, the Mast and Ghost Girl mobs, can leave freely, which makes sense for the Ghost Girl as she is indeed a ghost, I suppose, or at least she seems to be that way. The reason most mobs don't leave is probably, well, that's where they live now. Why would they need to go outside? Anyway, combining all this with the moon info saying experimentation was used in secret, it's possible that certain creatures like the Coilheads were manufactured in these locations for use in war. It's also possible the significant evolution speed of the creatures related to those on Earth was done by humans, to use as defenses against an enemy, explaining why the bunker spider evolved to hunt larger mammals, such as humans. What they could be fighting we don't know, perhaps amongst themselves, perhaps a bigger threat. Perhaps they once fought against the company. All we can know for now is that whatever happened, they're all gone. Only us, the creatures, and the company remain as far as we can see. That's all I can make out from what's currently in the game, and considering that on the surface it's a very fun and often silly game to play with your friends, it's pretty impressive how dark and more importantly how interesting the lore of this game is. I'm really excited for future updates that hopefully will add more to this surprisingly deep story, and for more opportunities to hear my friends run past streaming. Do you have the same interpretation as me, or do you think something else is going on here? If and when we know more, be sure to land your shuttle outside the theatre, and I'll be here to let you know what I think. All we can do for now is keep bringing in scrap, meeting quota, running for our lives, and hoping to find out what the company really is. Thanks for watching today's Panopticon Theatre performance. What do you think? Did I miss anything? What do you want me to talk about next? Make sure to sub and join the audience if you want to see more.